The teachings of ancient wisdom inform us that humanity is engaged upon an evolutionary journey, seeking to develop and express our spirituality whilst in physical form. This journey of self-discovery and self-mastery has been described throughout history by various religious, mystical, and esoteric teachings. It has sometimes been depicted symbolically as a mountainous ascent, what is referred to by classical occult teachings as the mountain of initiation. These teachings advise us that there are various ways by which our objective of reaching the summit may be achieved. The average person treads along the winding path of evolution, taking many, many lives and making only small progress in each one. Then there are those individuals who are stirred by a spiritual conscience, who undertake a somewhat steeper path up the mountainside by seeking both to explore and express their creative potential. The third way is the symbolic scaling of the mountain's cliff face, where we can short-circuit the process of evolution to attain its peak. It is by taking this particular course we then compact the experiences and spiritual growth of many lives into a short few. In esoteric parlance, the third way is described as the path of discipleship or spiritual path. A disciple is someone who consciously decides to undertake serious spiritual disciplines. The efforts, the endeavors, the various trials and tribulations and the resulting experiences here are symbolically referred to as a journey or path. In India, the spiritual path is beautifully depicted by the process of Raja Yoga, the yoga of kings. This great science is based upon a series of spiritual disciplines whereby the Kundalini, or coiled serpent power, in the Muladhara chakra at the base of the spine is coaxed upwards to arrive at the Sahasrara chakra, the 1,000-petaled lotus at the crown of the head. In medieval times, the spiritual journey was symbolized by alchemists through their great work, the transmutation of base metal into gold. This represents the archetypal process of spiritual transformation, whereby the transient, corruptible human personality undergoes a metamorphosis into the radiant, eternal, and incorruptible gold of the soul or higher self. The famous Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung described this process in his concept of individuation, which he regarded as a spiritual quest. The objective here being that of wholeness or integration, where both the conscious and unconscious elements of the human psyche, including the higher self, are unified. Jung was heavily influenced by alchemy, the symbols of mythology, and the spiritual teachings of the Orient. In his autobiography, entitled Memories, Dreams, Reflections, Jung's insatiable desire to penetrate to the core of his being was encapsulated by the following quote: "My life has been permeated and held together by one idea and one goal, namely, to penetrate into the secret of the personality. Everything can be explained from this central point, and all my works relate to this theme." It is said that when we set our feet firmly upon the spiritual path, the journey itself represents the goal. The path is woven from the very fabric of our being. It is the experiences that we undergo as we tread the path that result in the expansions of our consciousness. It is also said that when we tread this path, that we not only expand our own consciousness, but that of humanity, which is important to bear in mind. When we read the classical teachings of ancient wisdom, we discover that there are various interpenetrating planes where consciousness is expressed, ranging through physical substance up to levels of being beyond our comprehension. Theosophy states that in essence we are indivisible sparks of a divine flame known as monads, which have their being upon these upper levels of consciousness. Ultimate being, pure consciousness, and bliss are qualities of the monad. In the earlier Vedanta teachings, these were described as Sat, Chith, and Ananda. Due to its purity, the monad itself cannot contact the planes of consciousness below it, so it adopts structures which can operate at these lower levels. The soul or higher self is but a reflection of the monad, serving as its instrument upon the planes of consciousness below it. It exists for the purpose of attaining a complete form of consciousness, whereby it can respond to every vibration of life surrounding it on each and every level of existence. This process involves a series of many lives in human form upon what is commonly referred to as the wheel of rebirth. It is only upon successfully learning every lesson that life in human form has to offer us that we are freed from the need to reincarnate. We are then released from the wheel of rebirth, which has served its purpose to unfold the flower of the soul. This enables the monad to achieve its purpose throughout its long evolutionary sojourn of gaining spiritual staying power. The soul is comprised of qualities which Theosophy describes as Atma, Buddhi, and higher manas. These respectively being divine persistent will, love wisely applied and wisdom lovingly applied, and abstract thought. Where do we, as human personalities, stand within this vast evolutionary scheme? We are aware of our physical body, comprised of solid, liquid, and gaseous substance, but Theosophy says that this is interpenetrated by more subtle material within which our consciousness resides. The physical body is energized by an etheric or subatomic layer, which allows prana to enter it, vitalizing our nervous system. Then there is the astral body, through which we feel and express our emotions. At an even more subtle level is the mental body, by means of which we express active intelligence. It is these structures which constitute the personality. It is through the process of integrating our physical, emotional, and mental bodies that the personality becomes a useful instrument for the soul. The soul extends part of itself downwards into the lower realms of creation for the purpose of gaining experience and to develop and grow by unfolding its latent qualities through its adopted instrument, the human personality. At the end of the incarnation, the soul then withdraws back into itself, carrying with it the fruits of its endeavor. It is said that as instruments of the soul, we should seek to express divine persistent will, both in our daily lives and our spiritual endeavors, regardless of the circumstances into which we are thrust. Likewise, we are advised that there is a need for us to radiate love and display compassion towards others. Similarly, one who possesses a spiritual orientation must develop the capacity to abstract their thought processes from the constraints of the lower mind and its entanglement with the material world. The poet Robert Browning referred to the higher self as the imprisoned splendor in his work dedicated to the great medieval alchemist Paracelsus. Truth is within ourselves. It takes no rise from outward things, whate'er you may believe. There is an inmost centre in us all, where truth abides in fullness, and around, wall upon wall, the gross flesh hems it in, this perfect, clear perception, which is truth. A baffling and perverting carnal mesh binds it, and makes all error, and to know rather consists in opening out a way whence the imprisoned splendour may escape, than in effecting entry for a light supposed to be without. Browning alluded to the fact that the higher self is found within, and that spiritual development is a process of self-realization. But what factors in our life would lead us to embark upon this journey? Would it be when we are no longer satisfied with the affairs of the outer world and the leading of a materialistic and acquisitive life? Would it be when we begin to question the whys and wherefores of existence, craving answers towards the meaning of life? And this is where our journey begins. Throughout the history of humanity, this journey has been depicted symbolically by the great hero myths of our world, such as Jason pursuing the golden fleece, the knights questing for the Grail, and Hercules undertaking his 12 labours. When we tread the spiritual path, like the heroes of mythology, we respond to the call within and awaken to our ultimate destiny. Joseph Campbell, in his classic work, The Hero with 1,000 Faces, illustrates how the heroes of myth respond to the call to adventure and thereafter go forth into distant and dangerous lands that symbolize the inner worlds, realms of the unconscious that must be explored. Campbell divides the symbolism associated with the hero myth into 3 essential areas: separation, initiation, and return. He demonstrates how the hero must leave behind the entanglements of everyday life in pursuit of spiritual initiation, and how once this has been attained, the hero must then return to the rank and file of humanity as a transfigured individual who offers the lessons of their experience to others as an act of service. Now, theosophical accounts of the spiritual path describe various expansions of consciousness that occur as a person undergoes spiritual growth. These teachings illustrate how the individual awakens to a higher purpose in life, begins to study the spiritual classics, takes up meditation, seeks to serve humanity whilst freeing themselves from the demands of the lower nature as a means of achieving their goal. Why should the questing hero have to leave behind the entanglements of material existence? What purpose does this serve? The reason given for the need to discipline, control, and transmute earthly desires towards spiritual ends is to enable the safe and successful expression of the immense spiritual energies and responsibilities to humanity which this process entails. The Edinburgh Lodge of the Theosophical Society hold a series of paintings by the Scottish symbolist painter John Duncan, which beautifully illustrate this journey through the life of Prince Siddhartha. Prior to his birth, Siddhartha's mother dreamt that a white elephant descended from heaven and entered her womb. When her child was born, she experienced a pure vision, where she held the branch of a tree with her right hand, whilst the gods Indra and Brahma painlessly removed the child from her side. Siddhartha's father invited a group of Brahmin seers to predict the child's future. They predicted that the prince would grow up either to be a great monarch or a great spiritual leader. The king wanted his son to grow up to be a great monarch, and towards these ends, he kept him within the confines of his palace so that the sensitive and intuitive young boy would not experience anything remotely unpleasant which may lead him to question the whys and wherefores of life. When the prince finally ventured forth from the palace, his father ordered that the streets of the city be cleared of anyone who was either old or sick. However, despite this, the prince encountered a decrepit, wrinkled old man. On his second excursion from the palace, he saw a man suffering from disease. Then on the third occasion upon leaving, he witnessed a corpse. These images troubled the young rich man, who had previously wanted for nothing in his life. The next time that he left the palace, he saw a holy man who had sought and found answers to the riddles, pains, and sorrows of existence. Prince Siddhartha decided to emulate the holy man and thus undertook the journey, leaving behind his apparently idyllic lifestyle and his beautiful wife. After undergoing various disciplines and encountering different teachers, he arrived at a tree, the Bodhi tree. He seated himself underneath the tree and assumed a meditation posture, vowing not to rise from this until he attained perfect enlightenment. At dusk, the demon Mara tried to deflect him from his goal. Firstly, he sent his 3 beautiful daughters to seduce him, but Siddhartha remained unmoved through the power of his concentration. Mara then assailed him with an army of hideous and terrifying demons before attacking the prince himself, but on both occasions, the force of Siddhartha's concentration proved too strong. He then remained in meditation until dawn, when he attained perfect illumination, thereby becoming the Buddha. As the Buddha, he was faced with 2 choices. Either he could enter the blissful realm of nirvana immediately, or temporarily renounce this, to remain on earth to teach the ways of enlightenment to others. After the god Brahma implored him to choose the latter option, he then decided to remain on earth, to teach the lessons of his illumination as an act of service. Interestingly, the word personality is a compound one, derived from 2 Latin words, per and sona, meaning that through which the sound comes, or esoterically, the instrument through which the higher self sounds its own note. The Latin word persona describes the mask worn by the Greek or Roman actor, indicating the role that they happen to be playing. This is, of course, an apt description for the instrument of the soul. Indeed, all of the forms of nature may be viewed as masks that obscure the one divine life, which is both immanent, that is within, yet also transcendent of its very own creation. As we have seen, the personality is the instrument of the soul. It is chosen as a means of expressing its purpose and intent, thereby contributing to the soul's own evolution. It is important to bear in mind that each of us, as human personalities, have a unique purpose to fulfill in accordance with the objectives of the soul. The theosophist Annie Besant stated that personalities are like the leaves that shoot forth from a tree. They draw material from the outer environment, transform it, then send it to the tree as sap. This provides the tree with nourishment. Then, when the leaves have served their purpose for the season, they wither and fall, only to be succeeded by a fresh crop. When we tread the spiritual path, we must be aware of the limitations of our waking consciousness and of the deceptive impressions of the surrounding world that are conveyed to us by our 5 senses. Our thoughts, feelings, and the impressions received from our external environment create our own personal reality. This is often an extremely inaccurate representation of the world that surrounds us. We then become ensnared in an illusion, which the Hindus refer to as Maya. The true function of the 5 senses is to enable us to discriminate between the real, which is the spiritual and enduring, and the unreal. When we realize that creation is infused by the one divine life, described by the Vedanta teachings as Brahman, the world of multiplicity vanishes. This is the meaning of Maya, not that what is seen does not exist, but rather we are blinded and our minds distorted by our own imperfections. These cause us to perceive the one divine life as many separate and distinct lives, and the transient phenomenal world as real and enduring, whilst our desire nature causes us to be enticed and ensnared by the allure of that which is impermanent. To overcome Maya, we must awaken and free ourselves from its shackles. We must strive towards the realization that we are, in essence, a spark of the divine, part of a unified consciousness which is both immanent yet also transcendent of all of the forms of nature. The individual on the path should be aware that they are at the midpoint of two opposite poles, pure spirit and dense matter, and that their attention should be firmly focused on the objectives of the former. As Joseph Campbell said, one should strive towards becoming transparent to transcendence, whereby the divine being can express its intentions. Of course, when we set our feet firmly upon the path of spiritual unfoldment, we must be adequately prepared. We must be able to withstand the many tests and trials that the soul shall subject us to as it seeks to ascertain our worthiness as its instrument of expression. We must also possess the necessary psychological integration to both cope with and utilize the forces of the unconscious that shall inevitably confront us. The dangers in this area are symbolized in the classical myth where the hunter Actaeon accidentally comes across the goddess Artemis and her nymphs bathing naked in a pool within the forest where he was hunting. In this myth, Artemis, as a virgin and nature goddess, symbolizes the secrets of the unconscious or inner worlds, which are represented by the forest. Actaeon represents the individual who dabbles in esoteric pursuits without adequate preparation and lacking sufficient understanding of such processes. As a result, the forces of the unconscious, as symbolized by the hounds, overwhelm and devour him. There are certain basic prerequisites towards undertaking the journey that leads to spiritual unfoldment. These include harmlessness at all levels of our being, in thought, word, and deed, what the Hindus refer to as ahimsa. Mental polarization. We must be centered at the level of the mind and not of the emotions, avoiding what the Hindus call karma manas, meaning mind contaminated by desire. Without mental polarization, focus upon serious spiritual development is futile, as one's endeavors are merely imposed and driven by Maya. We must possess the courage to face any circumstances in life that confront us, and the ability to persist regardless of any of life's consequences. These are essential if we are to succeed in our ascent of the mountain. We must also endeavor to transmute the desires of the personality into aspiration for the spiritual life. It is desire which prevents us from experiencing the infinite joy and boundless bliss of our spiritual essence. Annie Besant wrote that we must learn to distinguish in everything around us between the permanent element and the impermanent, between the surface and the content, between the eternal and the transitory. The Hindus call this viveka, the yoga of discrimination, which entails distinguishing between the subject and the object of knowledge. I am not my body, I am the knower of my body. I am not my emotions, I am the knower of my emotions. I am not my thoughts, I am the knower of my thoughts. I am not my ideals and objectives, I am the knower of these. As I mentioned earlier, it is through the process of integrating our physical, emotional, and mental bodies that the personality becomes a useful instrument of the soul. When we tread the spiritual path, personality integration is a necessary requirement towards serious spiritual growth. This enables our mind, our emotions, and our body to function as one. In this way, we are no longer distracted from our spiritual purpose by the transitory affairs of the external world, nor are we bound to it by our attachments and our desires, but rather we function in conscious cooperation with the higher self. Madame Blavatsky stated that when one treads the path, all that is good and all that is evil surface. Effects that the Hindus call samskaras, laid down from the patterns of previous lives, emerge. These come from both the highest and the lowest levels of our being. The sum total of our lower nature, whose effects have been created over many lives, is referred to as the dweller on the threshold. This is an accumulation of our fears and the repressed and undesirable aspects of our character. The gateway to the inner worlds remains closed until we have faced and dealt with all of our unintegrated psychic contents, both of a negative and a positive nature, that lie concealed in the depths of the unconscious and which emerge in symbolic form in our dreams and meditations. Essentially, the dweller is an entity that blocks the threshold of initiation into higher states of consciousness. In classical myth, it is symbolized by the three-headed dog, Cerberus, who guards the cave of the unconscious. We deal with the dweller by confronting it and recognizing what it actually is. To achieve this, we are required to focus and concentrate our energies on the higher self and its objectives, thereby weakening and dissipating the dweller by causing its energy supply to cease. When treading the spiritual path, the soul shall offer us many opportunities to further our growth and development. We find that we meet people who are further along the path than we are, who can offer us a foothold on a higher level of the mountain. These are referred to, in esoteric parlance, as our elder brothers and sisters. The soul will use various means towards offering spiritual meaning to us, whilst directing us towards the inner realms. The aspect of the soul that assists us in our endeavours here is often referred to as the psychopomp, whose purpose is to unite the personality with the higher self. Just as Sherpa Tenzing served as Sir Edmund Hillary's guide in his ascent of Mount Everest, so the psychopomp assists us with its knowledge and experience of the inner terrain, which we must traverse as we proceed on our evolutionary journey. In Greek mythology, the psychopomp is symbolized by Hermes, the messenger of the gods, whose Roman equivalent is Mercury. In Egyptian myth, the psychopomp is represented by the god of wisdom, Thoth, and in Hindu myth by the elephant-headed god Ganesh. The psychopomp leads us into the realms of the unconscious. Its subjective nature may be expressed through art, music, poetry, and so on. We each experience the psychopomp existentially. Initially,
the inner guide tends to manifest in dream scenarios as a member of the opposite sex, what Jung referred to as the anima for males and the animus for females.
After this phase of the psychopomp's expression, its role is thereafter assumed by a spiritual mentor or guru in the outer world, who can also appear as a symbol in our dream life, advising us of what particular course of action to take. The phase of the teacher or guru is eventually replaced by us finding our own existential inner guide. The integrated personality that results from the successful assimilation of these experiences is independent and completely self-sufficient, being free from any emotional attachments whilst holding no fixed attitudes or ideas. This is beautifully symbolized by the image of the phoenix bird. The phoenix represents the ability to extricate the personality from mundane, materialistic circumstance and to elevate it to a spiritual level of being.
So we have looked at how we must prepare ourselves for our journey on the spiritual path. We understand then that we must integrate our personality, shake off our emotional attachments, relinquish all fear, and transmute the desires of the personality into spiritual aspiration as we become oblivious to the enticements of Maya. We have learnt that we should discriminate between the real and the unreal. But how do we communicate with the higher self? Plato described a world of ideas, and Theosophy talks of higher manas, which we understand to be abstract thought. Abstract thought is developed through study of the arts, philosophy, classical esoteric teachings, and especially through studying and interpreting the symbolism found in myth and the imagery associated with dreams and meditation. By this process, we begin to build a bridge to construct a link to the higher worlds. The esoteric teachings describe this as the Antakarana, or rainbow bridgehead.
Norse mythology talks of Bifrost, the rainbow bridge that links Asgard, the realm of the gods, with Midgard, the world that humans inhabit. Bifrost was said to have been built by the gods out of red fire, green water, and blue air, and to shimmer with rainbow-coloured light.
This bridgehead, which links the higher and lower selves, serves to increasingly channel the energies of the higher self into the aura of the personality, suffusing it with spiritual qualities. These have been hard won in previous lives, where they have passed up the Antakarana to be held by the higher self for future use. Importantly, it is through this bridgehead that a dialogue can be established between soul and personality, enabling the soul to offer guidance to the personality through the symbolism that occurs in dreams and meditation.
It is said that the practice of meditation is a very effective way towards widening the Antakarana, to the extent that it becomes a floodgate of spiritual energies from within, facilitating what we term the superconscious experience, whereby one's individual consciousness merges with that of the higher self. The great yoga teachings inform us of how the mind is in a state of perpetual agitation, that it continually assumes the forms and colours of everything that is presented to it by the senses, by the imagination, the emotions, and our memory. We all know how challenging it is when we try to focus on a single image or thought. Almost immediately, associated thoughts occur as the mind is constantly in movement. The analogy of water being rippled by the wind is used frequently here.
When the wind causes ripples in the water, only broken images of the objects surrounding the water can be seen as reflections. However, if the water is stilled, then the image of the surrounding objects can be perceived in its entirety. The true form that was previously splintered is now apparent. When we practice meditation, we are trying to still the waters so that we may perceive our essence.
We must realize that the stupendous event where we embrace the consciousness of the higher self is the result of the practice of spiritual disciplines extending over a series of lives. Spiritual development occurs at great depth and is not necessarily seen on the surface. Rather, we should persist with our daily practice of meditation in the knowledge that we are depositing energy at a spiritual level and that we shall eventually reap its reward. Once we have begun to make the effort to reorientate ourselves towards the higher self, we should record our endeavors by keeping a spiritual diary. We should pay particular attention to our dreams, noting these and looking for certain themes that are evident. The spiritual diary provides a focal point for the higher self and serves towards establishing a dialogue between soul and personality. Madame Blavatsky described karma as the ultimate law of nature. When treading the path, we become more aware of this great universal law of cause and effect. Once we make the decision to consciously accelerate our spiritual unfoldment, we should be prepared to shed karma at a very rapid rate. When such a decision is made, the higher self will pay considerably more attention to the personality and will test it accordingly to determine its reliability as a spiritual instrument. The offloading of karma can significantly assist this process. It should be viewed as a great spiritual opportunity, regardless of whatever scenarios that we may find ourselves thrust into. We must be aware that everything that confronts us in life is of our own doing, whether good or bad, but that this is employed towards our spiritual development. Crucially, when we are seeking genuine spiritual unfoldment, we should learn to perform our actions without thought of self or of the result. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna provides Arjuna with 3 injunctions.
To act without regard for the fruits of one's action. To avoid identification with action. And to dedicate action to Brahman, the ultimate transcendent reality, the eternal aspect of our being. When undertaking spiritual unfoldment, it is important that we, as personalities, develop a strong sense of empathy for the soul and its purpose and intentions. We should always be aware that the personality is a transient structure that is adopted and energized by the soul as a means of its expression. In accordance with an old axiom, we should learn to love where we are, who we are with, and what we are doing. We should be alive to the opportunities presented to us to develop and express the soul's qualities. It is up to us as the collective members of humanity as to when and how we will tread the path that leads to the source of our being. Joseph Campbell stated that the goal of life is to make your heartbeat match the beat of the universe, to match your nature with nature. Each and every time that one of us decides to embark upon the ascent of the mountain of spiritual initiation, humanity draws closer to that objective.